I
Can
am good.
you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How are you?
I'm good.
You looking purty.
I, I don't know what
You look
happened to our.
you looking lady sings the blues ish.
Well, I just tried to dazzle up a little bit today, and I'm
Razzle
I'm
dazzle.
wearing jewels from Sparkle Touch of Class. Y'all go follow Sparkle Touch of Class. She jeweled me up today. So
Pretty.
yeah, how y'all doing? Welcome to the kitchen table talk. Get in here, family.
Click
Y'all
right
get
in
in here,
there.
get in here. Get in here, family. Get in here. We live at the kitchen table talk where no topic is too heavy
Or too light.
for our table. Poo poo, what's been going on?
Girl. A lot. A lot. This has been a very I think I say this every Thursday.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, for real, for real. When I say that the county got their money's worth today, they did. I need,
Kind of got the
oh yeah, I need a vacation. I need a massage. I need,
ooh already.
I need it all. I need it all. I'm tired. I'm tired mentally, and I think I'm more tired mentally than physically. But it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Okay. Dang, poo poo, you worked today. I
I
had a
did.
little stressful day, but I'm hanging in there. I'm just doing a whole bunch of juggling of staff, so that's kind of got me on my toes right now. But one thing I did learn though is how vulnerable I am with my businesses and how vulnerable I am to life situations. When life happens, then I got to start jumping all around and going through hoops. So yeah, it
Well,
kind of helped
well,
me.
I mean, so that kind of tells us, because I do the same thing at times, but it tells us that we aren't preparing, right? We aren't preparing for those times. We're waiting for those times to arrive and then respond. So we need to be more proactive and not reactive so that when those times come, because they're bound to come, it's inevitable. We're able to maneuver and operate and balance properly and not be stressed because that's where sickness sets in, when we're
Yeah.
stressing. And it's unfortunate to everyone that we are attached to because now they're not getting the full 100% of us. We're not getting 100% of ourselves. So we can't give 100% to someone else. And so we just have to get better in that area.
I agree. I definitely agree. What we got in the kitchen soup today? What we talking about? Y'all get in here while our family get in. We scooting over. We making room. Get in here. Get in here. Get in here.
Good on it.
Get in here. What we talking about today?
I know there's so many things that we can talk about, so many things. But I'm like, everything has just been so heavy lately. This entire few months has been heavy, but in particular, these last few weeks, this last month has been extremely heavy. And so I'm like, can we just keep it light? Can we just keep it to the theme of this month that the Kitchen Table Talk has, which is honoring fathers. And I think it's just so amazing because we actually have some dope men out there, right? I happen to know a few. I happen to be dating one. Hello, how you doing? Anyway,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
we have some dope guys out there that are, you know, in position where are in alignment with what their purpose is, or maybe trying to find out what their purpose is. But they're moving. They're being fathers. They're being active fathers, not just fathers, but they're being active fathers, right? They're trying to do better than what they learned growing up. Like we have to start appreciating and honoring and giving them pats on the backs and telling them that, good job, so that could encourage them to keep doing the work.
I
Because
agree.
we're quick to say you don't, and you don't, and you don't. Like it's we got to get away from that because if we want to, look, for me personally, I can say a lot of negative things about my kid's father, my ex-husband, but I can say a whole bunch of great things about him too. So why I don't think it's fair that we only sit, especially women, sorry, that we only sit and listen to the negative things that are going to be said and we cheer them on. But as soon as we say something positive, because you know the negative, it's like, no.
Right.
Give the
Yeah.
flowers for the, give them their credit. Give them their credit. But if the credit isn't warranted, don't give it to them.
Well, I mean, I feel like, all of the fathers do what they do within their limitation. What was given to them, that's what they give. And
Right.
so because it wasn't given to them, they may not be able to give it. So they're giving the best of 100% of what they have, whatever they give. So as a result of that, or keeping that in mind, I feel like 100% of even whatever that fraction is that you have, if you're giving 100% of that, you're doing the best you can, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think sometimes we measure every man from one man, and many times
One
it's our
experience.
father.
Mm-hmm.
Many times we're measuring them against what our dads did, especially if you had a very active father in your life that showed you, taught you, and loved on you. Every man, and there's nothing wrong with that, trust me. But we have to also understand that every man that comes in our life that we have a relationship with is not going to do exactly that. Now, can you teach, show him, maybe talk to him about those things? If he's available for it, he'll
Right.
jump in there and he'll try his best to do it. But if he's not available for it, then it's not going to happen. You're making yourself upset for nothing.
Right. Got to be careful with the men, though, trying to show them stuff, and their egos and all that. But we ain't going to get into that because we got a man that's going to tell us that part of it. But what I love
Right.
is that we've been asking for um, for anybody who feels so led to send us a little short video of your favorite memory of your dad. And so far we start posting them today, and I thought they were pretty dope so far.
Good.
You gave a very touching one, and so I thought that was beautiful. We also
Yeah.
have one from Chrissy Food today. We have a few more coming in, and we're gonna post them all. Don't worry, we're gonna post them all. But
Yeah.
I had a little problem with it as usual. I always got problems. But I'm gonna get it on. I'm gonna get it on. Don't even worry. Don't even worry. I'm getting mine on there. But yeah, I'm excited about seeing all the videos, and they were very special. A few comments. We're gonna actually mention some of the comments that we got as well later on. Throughout the month, we'll mention some of the comments as well because we got a few inboxes. So we want to thank you guys, and we want to let you know continue to send them in because we're going to be posting
Yes.
all month long. All month long, we're honoring the fathers. We know Father's Day is this Sunday, but we're still gonna love on them for the rest of the month because, like my husband say, "Yeah, we get one little day, and ain't nobody seen nothing on the corner yet." So we want to turn that around and change that. We want to change that picture for them, and just not just him, but all of the fathers, and just kind of love on them all month long. Let them know that we loving on them. All right, so Ram, I think we can go ahead. Y'all get in here, get in here. Click like and share. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, touch your neighbor, tell somebody. Yeah, click and then come back and let us know that you shared here at the Kitchen Table Talk. Go ahead, Ram, introduce our special guest.
Yes, our special guest tonight, Mr. ALVIN Eddington. Great man, great man, great man. Family man. He is a very vocal. He's a very vocal, powerful man. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a man of God, and he is here to talk to us about his experience, what his example of what a father was, and how he has used that example or not. So we're gonna bring him in and allow him to introduce himself.
I got to do that part, huh?
Yes, and
Oh,
we're gonna go from there. You want to throw it over to
welcome. Salute
Hey,
you.
ladies, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. So, been listening to you guys, and I'm excited about this opportunity just to talk about fatherhood and my experience with fatherhood as a kid, and then the things that translated to my adulthood, what I learned from my dad and from other men. But first, I'm Alvin Eddington Jr., a kid from South Central Los Angeles who grew up in the 80s, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s. We know what that meant, the era, the crack era, right? So I did a lot of life, just living life through the experience, like, drugs. My mom was a teenage mom, a single mom. My dad was a teenager as well. And so, I had that dynamic. But, navigated through life like we all did, with the good and the
Right.
bad. We figured it out, right? And so hung out in the neighborhood, didn't get caught up in gangs or in drugs, but I played a lot of sports and just was a kid, man. I tried to be a kid as much as I could. I was the oldest son, so I had responsibilities. My brother was 3 years younger than me, so I had to make sure that I did what I could to make sure he was all right. But my dad was a weekend dad. Even though he and my mom didn't work out, he still made sure that on the weekends he would come and get us and teach us things, as he had learned throughout his life. And so he was the one who introduced me, because you mentioned I'm a preacher. He was the one who introduced us to church, my brother and I. I was a teenager, so my brother was still in elementary, so I was probably in middle school. And so, that began my journey where people would tell me, "Oh, you're going to be a preacher." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I don't know what that meant, but I just knew that that's what people were telling me. And so, I had that experience as a kid of learning the Bible, through stories in the Bible, through somewhat paying attention to the sermons. As a kid, you don't really pay too much attention because a lot of times adult talks speak to adults, right? So went on to college, started living my life. Yeah, wasn't going to church anymore. What I'm saying, power to the people. Finding out I was,
right.
power, black power, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I, went to California State University Northridge, and we had a Pan African Studies department. So I started to learn about myself, and then learning about myself, I, just took this journey on, what does Islam look like? Because I wanted to be proactive in the community. What does Buddhism look like? What's going to look the best as it pertains to me and me fitting into what I believe my call was in the community. Christianity was off the table, because they were hypocrites, right? But in every religious circle, you have people who are broken trying to figure it out, and we normally call them hypocrites, but I feel like they're just trying to figure it out, and they're working through their issues, and sometimes they put on its face because they're trying to hide the fact that they're not perfect, which none of us are. And so those hypocrisies that I saw growing up, led me to study other things. Right. And then I got broken, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I'm a preacher now. So yeah. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm 46. I have a wife a little bit younger than me. Not going to tell you her age. But she's a little bit younger than me. We have two daughters. One is 20, about to be 21 in a little over a month. And then a 19-year-old who will be 20 in February. And so, yeah, one is in Houston at Texas Southern. The other one is home now, but she attends Oklahoma Christian University in Oklahoma.
So that's two female, two daughters.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. No. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, oh man. Okay. So you said a lot. I mean, some of it gonna spill into another segment. We got hypocrite Christians. We got crack era.
Man,
We got
Right.
other things going
I
on.
done been
No,
through it all.
I think it's real cool that you said that you went and you did the research on other, I was gonna say nationalities, other religions, other
Hey.
beliefs, right, to other faiths to see what fit your lifestyle, right? Many
Mhm.
times we, and you, like you said, Tina, that's a whole nother segment, but many times we just go with what mama and daddy said,
Mhm.
right? So I commend you for doing that, because many of us aren't even willing to step out and see what the other folks think.
So how much of that did your dad play a part of? Like, because I know you said he was a weekend dad. What did that mean? What did that look like?
So being a weekend dad, man, you know, my brother and I would go over to my dad's house on a weekend, and we experienced life with dad Monday through Friday, basically with my mom. You know, get to my dad's house, a whole nother set of rules, regulations. With mom, we didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to make a bed, didn't have to, you know, didn't have to do anything. But when you get to dad's house, you know, it's like, oh, you got to rake these leaves. You got, you know, you're like, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? That's not what we do. And then, so,
That's not what we did.
right, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, so we break leaves and be mad that we have to rake leaves, but then we'd also get to play video games. And he would play video games with us. Even if he wasn't good at it, he would still try. So looking back on that, it was that time where he spent those moments with us, even if it wasn't him necessarily saying things or teaching us lessons as it pertains to, well, you know, when you date a woman, this, you know, or when you get older, or finances or anything, he just that spending that time, you know, doing what would seem like absolutely nothing was a lot. So, you know, and even picking us up on the weekends, because a lot of my friends didn't have that. They didn't have the opportunity to even really know their dad. So, you know, growing up, I didn't value it. I just like, man, as soon as I could stop going over there on the weekends, I was like, I'm done. I'm in high school. Like, I'm gonna go hang out. I'm not gonna do it anymore. But when I start to just like look back over my life, my dad's influence was greater than I thought. Me and my dad actually have a strenuous relationship, and have had, because we're a lot alike. You know, we both want to be right, and so, you know,
Both talk to both of y'all wrong.
man, all the time, right? And so, you know, so with that being stated, um, you know, I didn't want to always be in conflict, because, you know, I grew up with my mom and my grandmother. So in a lot of ways, I was the you know, I didn't have to answer to anyone. I was the not you know, young black boy, man of the house. I wasn't really the man of the house, but I kind of had that placed on me. Like, you know, I was the oldest brother. Even though my uncles were in and out, they were never really there. So you know, I didn't feel like he could tell me anything. Although he was my dad. I didn't have a proper respect for him as my father, because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what that looked like, right? So, you know, so as soon as I could not be around him, I stopped being around him, because I didn't need anything from him. Although I did, I needed a lot. And I think a lot of my dysfunctions came from the fact that I missed out on those moments when, instead of inviting him to things to be a part of my life, I want to prove that I could make it without him. And so, you know, in the beginning stages of my adulthood, I would blame him for not being there, but really it was me and my dysfunction pushing him away, because I needed to be my own man, even though I didn't know what a man looked like. My preaching ministry has been impacted tremendously by my dad. He, you know, he wasn't a minister. He never preached well, he preached a sermon once, I believe. But I never saw him like teach Bible study or anything like that. You know, we didn't do devotionals, but he always listened to, you know, Commission and the Winans. To this day, can't nobody tell me nothing about Fred Hammond and Commission or the Winans, you know, hands down, right? But you know, that was in the 80s and 90s that he was listening to this, and it's 2020, right? So that foundation, and then the preachers that I'm attracted to as far as their word and it being biblically based, is because that's what my dad listened to. And so, you know, even though he didn't actually, you know, sit down and teach me how to study, he pointed me in the right direction. Right? He pointed me towards the things that he didn't know how to do. He would, in his own way, he would make sure that I heard, or that I was around people who had sound teaching, and who were going to go to the Bible first and not go to their feelings first. So my preaching and teaching ministry, and my worship, even my worship, has been greatly affected by my dad.
Wow. That's a lot. But that's good, because so when you initially said he was a weekend dad, I took that as a negative. But really, as I began to listen to you, it was actually a positive. And so
Thanks.
everything that you said that he did.
Oh Lord, did we lose her? Oh, did we lose
You can't
it?
hear me?
I can hear her. I can hear you.
Oh,
I
okay.
can hear her.
Everything that you said that he did on the
Mhm.
weekend was building who you are today. So I think
Facts.
you were trying to remove yourself from the discipline that you now know today that you needed. You now know today that if you had hung around or invited him, as you said, to more things, you would be even more of a man. We
Completely.
lost her.
Okay, there we go. We coming back.
It was you.
Yeah, you know what? It's done it twice. The internet just completely blacked out. Like, what is going on? Don't even worry
But
about
it would be, you would be, you know, a little bit more, a little further than you are, you know, as a result of. But I think that's what happens when many of us, we'll say that, oh, my dad or my mom, but my dad wasn't there, he wasn't there. And it goes kind of, there's an umbrella for that. You know, he was trying to be there, but mom wouldn't let him be there, or he was trying to be there, but we rejected him, right? We only allowed him in so much emotionally, right? So it sounds like your dad was trying to be there as much as he possibly could. And it had nothing to do with your mom not allowing him to be in your
Right.
life, but everything to do with you not wanting the discipline and wanting to show him that you could do this on your own. But in hindsight, you really needed him to help you. But he did. He still helped you by just being the example. Like you said, he didn't know how to tell you how to do certain things or where to go. But his example of being that, even though he couldn't articulate it, played a major part in your life.
Facts. Um, you know, I think as especially, I have a lot of life under me now. So when I look back at the '80s, um, kids, we started to become disrespectful towards adults because a lot of kids were selling drugs to adults, right? So, so the people who were running the neighborhoods were teenagers and young guys. And so the people who we would see on drugs were adults, like people who should have been taking care of us. So I think that dynamic played a role in even shaping me. And so even though I definitely needed my dad to give me guidance and stuff like that, we knew what we was talking about. We knew what we were doing. We knew, we were teenagers. So I got it all figured out, right? I know how to, do whatever it is. I didn't know nothing, right? But that dynamic in our community really, hindered us and gave us this false sense of identity, false sense of what it meant to be a man. Again, I didn't sell drugs or nothing like that, but all my homeboys, what I'm saying, they were, most of them were, they were dope dealers, and I go hang out with them, and we can just, whatever, and it was no big deal, no adults around. I was, drinking 40 ounces at the age of 13, like, like,
Right.
what did I need an adult for, right? So, that lack of guidance or that misunderstanding as a kid, I was a kid. So what did I know? You know what I'm saying? My brain wasn't even fully developed. I knew everything. That played a role in me thinking I didn't need my dad in those moments, but I really missed out on great things from him. Allowing him again to be a part of things that I experienced, allowing him to talk to me about women, and allowing me to talk to me about his successes and his failures in life. I pushed all that away because I no longer wanted to go over there because I didn't want the discipline, right? And so when it comes to discipline, like, I look back, I'm like, that's not like my strongest point is not discipline, right? Because I rejected it, right? And so now at 16, when I rejected it, now at 46, I'm still struggling with it because what my dad tried to sow into me, I pushed away. So it wasn't his fault, it was me, right? So yeah.
So what? Yeah, that's interesting. But like Ram said, what I heard is I see a lot of things that he was a lot of roles that he was trying to play, as you stated, and some of it might have been your rejection. The key is, why were you rejected? I don't know how consistent he was. Was that playing a part? Was it consistency? Not sure, but how do you feel that you've already stated that you have a weakness in discipline? How else did his um how did his parenting affect your parenting today with your daughter?
Oh, okay. So it's a lot of different ways, right? So um, I've learned that you figure it out along the way, right? As much as you read in a book, as much as you know, as much as you've learned from another person, the good and the bad, you figure it out along the way. And I think that's what I learned from my dad too. Again, he was 18 when I was born, so he was figuring it out along the way, right? So he shifted. So when video games came out, he got video games and he played video games, just so that he could shift. I remember he took us to, I think it was like Payless or something like that one time. And, he was just trying to stretch out the money, right? And get as much as he could for us for school. And, I looked at that like, it was disrespectful taking me to Payless or to Zodi's, you know what I'm saying? And, we were on a fixed income. It wasn't like we was balling, but, we made it look good. We might have had, we might didn't have a lot, but we made what we had look good. And so as opposed to him being upset that I didn't want to wear these clothes from Zodi's or from Payless or whatever, he shifted again and he decided, I'm gonna get you Levi's, and if I get you these Levi's though, you'll only be able to get 2 pair as opposed to 5 pair of Lee's or whatever the case, whatever the name was, right? And so I saw my dad shift. Even when we started going to church, because he didn't go to church, he went from drinking to not drinking. I have a picture when I was a kid, a baby, an infant. I had my dad had a Coors bottle or Budweiser, and I had a little can. So, you know what I mean? So he shifted. He just, as he grew up, I grew with him. As he learned, and he was learning, he was taking me on this journey with him. And so I find that in my same situation with my daughters. Like, I had to learn. I mean, we're a blended family, right? So when I came into our situation, they were preteens. So they were shifting and learning and growing into who they were going to be. And I was shifting and learning to grow into what I needed to be for them. And a lot of times when men come into a blended situation, and they're not the biological, they feel like they have to, I am man, hear me roar. I'm the head of this household, blah, 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 blah. And so I did that, right? I tried that approach and that didn't work. And so, eventually, I was like, I keep losing these battles, right? I keep, especially with two daughters and a wife, I'm like, it's me against the world, right? It was just, but, so I had to shift and I had to figure out how to individually connect with my girls. And I think that was the biggest thing that helped my shift in building a relationship with them individually and having different relationships with them and honoring who they were individually. I shifted and I moved, and doing those shifts and moves. I think that even now they're in college, right? And man, whoo, Jesus. Going away to college and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, but it's, as opposed to me being that dad who is going to reprimand you because I know what you're doing. I know what's going on. I did it. I'm that guy who's like, okay, I got to shift with them. I got to be that person that if you need to communicate and you need to talk through this, if some boy breaks your heart, I need you to feel safe enough to come to me that I won't go off on you and then go off on him, but I'll try to protect you and I'll try to teach you. And so, I'm still moving and shifting. And that probably is the biggest thing that I learned. Also that I don't have to be right. Right. I don't have to be right all the time. I'm dad. That means that I'm always right. I have to listen, right? And especially having young ladies. I have to listen a lot to my wife because, she knows things that I don't know. I could be easily manipulated, real. When it comes to these girls, they can get over on me. But I have to listen, right? I have to listen to my wife, and I gotta listen to them. Sometimes I gotta listen to what they're not saying. And again, that's me learning and flowing with them as women and myself as I matriculate through life because I'm changing too. Like we're all changing, but as the head, I gotta notice my own change, and I also gotta notice what's going on in my kids' life and my wife's life, and just be really attentive to that and be present. I used to have a big problem with being present, right? Because my dad was a weekend dad, so I didn't get to see him Monday through, so I didn't know what it looked like to come home and be present. I knew what it looked
Yeah.
like to, here goes the money, you food, you're fed, you got clothes. Hey, amen, let's go. But they needed me to be present, to be there, to watch, Mean Girls with them, or to do silly stuff that I wouldn't want seen on Facebook, but things that bring value to our connectivity. So I had to learn how to, because I was horrible at that. I would come home, hey, things not in order. I don't care what nothing else go. So I had to learn how to be present. And unfortunately and fortunately, my girls are awesome and they are rooted in the Lord. So when I wasn't on point, that didn't make them hate me and push me away. I'm thankful for it. Right.
Right.
That humbles me. To this day, I'm thankful for it, because they could have. Because I
Right.
didn't try to relate. I didn't try to be present. What I tried to do was, I am man, hear me roar. And they could have rejected that and said, you know what, we'll never listen to you. But I have my girls' ears in their hearts. And I had to shift in life with them in order to get that. So I took that away from my dad. That's another something that I got to get to ALVIN Senior. He showed me that.
Is your dad still with us?
Yes, he is.
And so now that you are all grown up and you realize some of these things,
I gotta
what
tell him.
do you do? What do you do to make that right?
Man, golly, see, here we go with all this kitchen talk stuff, right? So I don't know if I hope my
You know,
homeboy.
we have to say, well, this is what we do.
Wait. You hope your homeboys what?
I hope my homeboy is watching, because he's going through the same issue I'm going through. So me and my friend and I, we were talking about our struggles with our dads just like a couple of weeks ago. And we're like, man, we got to pray together. We got to figure this out, because, we're being stubborn, we're prideful, and we know that we need to reconcile the relationship. And it's going to take it from us to humble ourselves.
Am I alone again?
No.
Oh, I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
We can hear
She
her.
froze again. But to continue to answer her question, so my friend and I are going through the same journey of, humbling ourselves and reconciling with our dads, and we're both juniors, right?
Wow.
So we both were named after our dads, and so I'm trying to figure out a way to tap back in, and I need to tell my dad all of these things that we've discussed that I've noticed that he's brought to my life.
Wow.
And so yeah.
That somebody needs to hear today, and we're gonna get it out. So there we go.
Everybody can hear us. It's just you. Go ahead.
Oh, they can't hear me. Okay. Well, I was still going just in case.
Uh-oh.
I said, you know what I said? I'm gonna let you finish, but I was like, I just rebuked the devil, because I'm like, there's a message that somebody needs to hear. And obviously that's when the devil, just starts trying to mangle things, but somebody needs to hear what it is you're saying. And that just hit my spirit right now. And I just thank you for being on here and being transparent. Yeah. And, so just go ahead and speak your truth at the table.
No problem. So I was just saying how I needed to reconcile things with my dad, and I need to be proactive, and reaching out to him and building building the relationship, and not only building the relationship, telling him and thanking him for what he has sown into my life, because it wasn't until you guys asked me to be a part of that I actually thought about it. Like, what did my dad? And I was like, wow, my dad has played a major positive role, and I hold on to this bitterness. Right. Because we are the same and we both want to be right. And I need to humble myself. That's my dad. And I need to, walk in repentance with him. And, if we argue every time, I just need to humble myself and be quiet sometimes. It's okay for me. Like I learned from my girls, it's okay for me to not be right all the time. It's okay for me to listen. It's okay for even him to be wrong and me not to defend myself or my point of view, right? So I'm looking forward to the conversation that he and I are going to have. Now that it's all public and everything, and it's not just me and my homeboys, and we need to pray and fast about it.
Yeah, you just called yourself. You just called yourself to the table. I mean, you know, you
We
gotta
put it
make
in
it
the
happen. But
atmosphere.
that's what
Facts.
the kitchen table talk is all about. Bringing those type of situations to the table and getting it out there. Because here's the thing. You aren't, and as you just said, you got a homeboy that you hope is listening. You guys are talking about this. You aren't the only one. There's millions of men and women, but there's especially men, because it's so hard for you guys. It seemed like, because I'm not a man, but because you've been told that you have to be macho, you have to be tough, you have to stand tall, you have to be let it be known that you're right if you think you're right. It's big for you to say that you have to humble yourself, you have to go and repent, you have to go to your father and admit to him the great things that he's done, right?
Right.
Versus just going and say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. To hear you say that as a woman, to hear you say that, I just had chills, because I could only imagine what your father, how he would receive that. You know,
Right.
how that could be the opening door to this relationship to continue to grow and build. And so I commend you for that, because I know that's a lot. It takes a lot of work to do that.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Even you said so many things that, I mean, one important thing that I picked up on is that uh, hearing from your daughters what they're not saying, which
Mm-hmm.
is what your father probably didn't hear what you weren't saying. You know, because obviously you had some things going on that you weren't expressing. So I think that's very paramount that you learn that, to hear what they're not saying, because oftentimes it is what's not being said.
That's the
That's
loudest.
what. Yes, that's the loudest. Absolutely. Like my voice is loud, but anyway. But yeah.
You know, another thing that I was thinking about, just, speaking of, again, culturally, generationally, being a 70s baby, going through the 80s. I was thinking about a lot of there are a lot of single moms, right? And it stems from that, the 70s and the 80s, and we can look at the history of all that, it's all good, right? It is what it is. But a lot of us men, because we don't have healthy relationships with our dads, or because our dad has been absent for whatever reason.
Right.
The life, history will show that a lot of the reasons why our fathers haven't been available for us as men and women is because systematically they were removed from the situation, right? And so
Right.
even with that being said, like I go back to my preaching aspect. Is I looked at Moses, because you guys, this is y'all fault too. I looked at Moses, right? And so when I looked at Moses' life, Moses, the only thing they said about Moses' dad is that he had him. It doesn't say anything else about Moses' dad. His mom raised him, his mom and his sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then, 40 years of that experience, and he was raised in the Pharaoh's house, but he was the Pharaoh's grandson. So, what type of relationship did he have as an outside? I mean, he was an outcast, and,
Right.
and he didn't have, we don't hear anything about his dad. And then, he gets to 40 years old, and as opposed to going to have somebody to talk to about the situation that he experiences, he murders somebody. He does something wrong, right? And then,
Right.
as opposed to going and having protection and feeling confident enough, he runs away,
Right.
right? And so, I liken that to us so much. Like, sometimes we don't know how to navigate through life, and we don't have a man there, and so we make these mistakes, and then we run away, and we try to figure it out over here in Midian, right? So he gets to Midian, and then he gets the opportunity to build a relationship with another man, his father-in-law. And so now he's a sheep herder. So he learned something now. So now he has a man in his life where he's learning something from. And that was his training ground, right? He was training. He was training dealing with sheep in the desert, not knowing that he would eventually have to deal with people who were sheep in the desert, right? The way that God did that God was always there parenting and watching over him, because he had something for him to do. So when Moses is 80, right, 80 years old, man, like this dude is 80 years old, God gets
Come
his
on
attention.
now.
God gets his attention, right? And when God gets his
Right.
attention, he responds. And so, there are times in our lives when God is trying to get our attention. We have to respond when God is trying to get our attention, because
Yeah.
ultimately he is the Father. And when he gives them his mission, God says, I've heard my people's cry. I've heard my children's cry. For 80 years, when they were trying to throw you in and out, I've heard my children. I've seen that pain. But I had to make sure that you were in the proper position, that you were in the
Yeah.
proper place, that you had gone through everything I needed you to go through, right? I needed you to go through that without a father. I needed you because
Yeah.
I needed you to rely on me and not go run to your daddy to get information that I had for you. And to go say, well, Dad, well, God told me this. What do you think? I don't have those. You don't have those distractions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of us who blame our dads or blame the system or blame society for the fact that our fathers haven't been available, we have to ask ourselves, at what moment are we going to allow God to get our attention and then put us on purpose? In our communities right now, if there's not a moment when Black men should be trying to hear what God is saying, our kids, these babies need us. They've always needed us, but more than now, they need us to be strong. They need us to go and work and do some things in legislation. They need us to do some things in the community, in church. And they need us to do things everywhere. We have to be present, and we have to listen to what God is telling us to do in our individual spaces so that we can go tell Pharaoh to let my people go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so,
Oh
yeah,
wow,
that's
that's
what I'm right there.
That was
okay.
powerful.
All right, bring it on. We
Great,
hear it.
great correlation. Great correlation as you talked about Moses not having his dad and not having anyone, and just having to rely on God. That's a great way of looking at it. But you definitely have to be mature in knowing and being able to say, you know what, all of this happened for a reason. I needed to go through that so that I could rely only on God or only on what he's told me to do. But when we aren't mature, when we don't, our mindset, when we aren't wise like that, we're going to point the finger at because you didn't, because he didn't. And we 50 years old and still blaming something that happened when we were 14, 15 years old. And I understand that many of us have to go through certain counseling and all that. But at the same time, even in that, your counselor is trying to get you to understand that you have the power right now. Right now, you have
Right.
the power to overcome those things. So thank you for connecting those stories, the reality to the reality, because that's what it is.
Not a problem.
I got one other question. I got a couple questions, and then we're gonna allow anybody that might have questions out there to chime in. Y'all start typing, click like and share. Somebody click like and share, and come back and let us know you shared. Um, are there times when when you get scared that you're not gonna get it right? Because I know with men, a lot of times they're afraid, they're scared inside. They don't want to show their fear. Do you have those moments?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in various ways. But again, like even in my journey, when I prayed for my wife, the wife that I would need, my rib, the one who's going to help me get to walk in purpose. God sent me that, and so in those moments, in those areas where I'm weak and I'm afraid, my helpmeet is strong, so it balances me off, and she's always encouraging me in those areas. So yeah, I definitely have those fears, and I definitely have those apprehensions, and with different things in life. But I have what I call my human Holy Spirit on my side. Like, let's go. We got
Right.
work to do.
Right.
Not only do these girls need us, there are other people who need what we have. So you can't be afraid. It's not time to back down or to even cower. In this moment, Moses had Aaron. You know what I mean? It's like, God has definitely gave me exactly what I needed in order
Right.
to start to move towards purpose. Like
Yeah.
I've been living a long time even before I met my wife, and so I was preaching, I was helping people out, I was doing discipleship, and I was doing things, but I was never walking in purpose, right? And so having her helps me to
Big
walk in purpose.
difference.
Yeah, it is big difference.
Right.
And, so living the life that I preach about, living the life that I sing about, being able to be authentic about what I'm saying. So I can't get up there and preach something that I haven't experienced and I believe in. So if you see me preach, you're like, man, he's so passionate, because I only preach things that I'm passionate about, that I'm authentic about, or that that God has allowed me to experience. because you gotta be real and you gotta be relatable. Because people need that, real and relatable. They don't need that. Oh, the preacher who, they don't need somebody who's super out. He's so spiritual. No, I'm just a dude, man. God has given me a voice to be able to speak, and here it is.
Right. Right.
Right. I agree. Ram, you got a question? You got anything?
I wanted to, but mine is probably what we should end with. So if you have anything
Right.
between that.
Yeah, no. I'm already on the same page with you. But okay, what would you say is the best part for you of being a father?
The best part, I'm gonna give you two answers. The best part is just talking to my girls about absolutely nothing, like stuff that I'm like, I don't care about that stuff, like that. I'm like, okay, I love that. Right? I do. I love that, and that's kind of coupled with when they have something serious that's going on that they want to talk to me about. If it's right now social justice issues, and having conversations with. So I love conversing with them. It does me well, but also just knowing that they have such a bright future. If God says the same, they are awesome young ladies, and I'm excited that I'm able to sow into them and pour into them, and as they build their own lives, and the things that they want to do, I'll be able to always be there to guide them. They'll always be able to come to me and say, Dad, can you pray for me? Or Dad, what do you think? Or Dad, this is hard. And I'll always be able to, as long as God says the same, I'll always be able to know that I play a small part in what they're going to do, because I'm doing some good stuff. My wife is doing some amazing things, but my girls, they're going to be off the charts. So I'm excited about that. That makes me very, very happy and excited just to see them grow and experience life, good, bad, and indifferent. I'm just excited about what I know that God is going to do through them and to them.
Awesome.
Wow, I'm excited just listening to you talk about it. I mean, really though, I just got chills because I can feel it from you when you even speak about it, and just the evolution from your experience to what you're experiencing, and how you're paying it forward.
Yeah, facts.
Switch the trajectory, and decided to do it different. Be present, because I swear, being present is it's non-replaceable.
Yeah.
And it's like when you say just talking to him about I know that from my husband. He hates talking about just like nothing, like those type of things. But when you can do it because you love somebody, right? Just enduring it simply because you love them. It ain't nothing that interests you or whatever. Doing it because you love them and you want to be present. I think that's awesome. I salute you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Did we have any questions from the people, Tina?
Oh yeah, I don't see anything. Venus says hype of people thinking you're perfect as a father, preacher, etc. How do we keep from getting caught up in the hype? Yeah, how do we keep from getting caught up in the hype? Venus is asking that. The hype of, and that's what she said. The hype of people thinking you're perfect as a father because you're a preacher.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's big. People put standards on preachers that we don't put on ourselves.
Right. So I'm
unrealistic.
Yeah, I live my life out loud, right? So what I mean by that is, you see it on my West Coast Wednesdays, right? So you guys have both seen my West Coast Wednesdays. I'm me, right? I'm gonna throw up a W. I'm a quote an Ice Cube. I'm gonna quote Tupac, and I'm gonna quote Jesus, right? And so I try to be who I am, and I'm not trying to say that I'm trying to keep one foot in the world and one foot in the church. I'm 100% in the church, but I'm 100% a man, right? The Bible says that we're 100% spirit and flesh. So that's this duality. A lot of times as preachers, we don't show those people our flesh side. We don't show them the spiritual side. So when I want to cuss somebody out, I'm super spiritual. Man, you might get it from me. right? You might, and I might have to come back and apologize, and then it's not going to be up to you to forgive me or not. But you might receive that, and so people know that, who are in my circle and people who experience me, that Poke, that's my nickname, right? He's gonna be real with you. He's gonna be who he is, and so I think that's important. Like, I am still that guy from South Central Los Angeles. God has allowed me and shaped me in that. That don't mean I go around cussing people out and doing all that crazy stuff. But what it means is that that person is still there, and that person can still play dominoes. He can still play spades. He can still do those things. Now he's human, right? And that he has marital issues. He has relational issues. He has issues with self-esteem, right? And so if we're honest about those things, then the church will allow us to go get therapy without talking about us, right? So like, ministers don't want to talk about the fact that they go to therapy when they got to counsel all these people with all their problems and take care of all these people. I need to be taken care of too, right? And so now I'm giving you the authority to allow me to be human when I'm just human. Now you say, oh man, I'm not surprised that Alvin's crazy, because Alvin's crazy. I am. That's why I need Jesus, because I'm crazy. I didn't have Jesus, who knows, right? So just not playing to the whole preacher pastor thing and making yourself seem like you're something that people are making you seem like. So when you fall, people fall with you. No, just be honest about who you are. Just be real about who you are. Be real about your struggles. If you struggle with, your sexuality, say, I struggle with my sexuality, so people can pray for you and be looking out for you and have your back. Give the people an opportunity to undergird their shepherds and like really pray and hold them to a standard that is not outside of anybody else. That title is a title, and yes, God holds us to a slightly higher because we're over watching the sheep. But that's just a title. We're human. Like, you on your job, you got a title, and you still who you are. Same thing. We are human. And so, allow us to be human. Just allow us to be real. Invite us to the barbecue when y'all got that Hennessy, and we might not grab it in front of you, but, we're not going to talk about you either, right?
Somebody in front of you. We're going to wait till you go to the bathroom. No, I think that's absolutely authentic and transparent. You're absolutely right. I think they put the standard on preachers that because I know for a fact that they do. Well, not for a fact, just what they told me. I ain't never been in the session with the preacher, but I've heard that they do go to sessions, because I would only imagine you have to unload some of all that crap. You have to. People, they put this thing on the preacher like he God, like he can't falter, like he got to unload some of that stuff sometime. And so I would imagine that they go to, even if it's not a therapy session, it is group sessions amongst preachers where they can be free to speak. I heard you speak and one of your West Coast. I heard you speak about the importance of the therapy and taking care of yourself. Just like you go to the doctor, you get sick, you go follow the doctor's order. These are your words, and do the same thing when it comes to your mental health as well. And we as African Americans, we really shun the mental health therapy. Like we feel like that's, like you said, people gonna think we're crazy if we don't seek mental health. And that is another reason why I wanted to do the kitchen table talk, because I feel like it's a form of therapy as well.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Oftentimes people come, just like you said, wow, it kind of made you think. It was the first time you had spoke about that particular area with your father. There was, we've heard numerous times after the show when the guests say, wow, I hadn't even dug into my feelings that deep in a long time. So that is the goal. That is our goal, that we inspire to help people get free and be able to just speak it and unload it so they can feel good.
Yeah, it's a great. This is definitely
if they're already free, right? That they're willing to talk about it to help somebody else get free.
Right.
So
This the whole concept. Just a big shout out to you guys. The whole concept of for us really is getting back to the table, right? Like life. We know how life is, man. Like both people working and what I'm saying, everybody eating out, Uber Eats and all these stuff, different things, you throwing stuff together. We don't sit down at the table anymore.
Right.
And part of that is not because we don't want to, it's because we had to work 2 jobs or we had to work a shift and we had to, hey, food is in the refrigerator. We had to do that. And so we missed out on a very important aspect of family life, which was sitting around the table and how was your day? How are you
Right.
doing, right? And so
Absolutely.
this idea, this concept of being able to come to the kitchen and talk
right.
is very necessary, and I applaud you guys for it. And I just pray that it has
Oh, wait, what? Now we
success.
lost. Oh, okay.
You lost me?
Oh, you
You
coming
lost
back?
me? I'm coming back.
Yeah.
You in there.
I was just saying that I pray that that God just shows out on this platform because it's necessary. It did do something for me. I'm like, golly, okay, it did a lot for me that I wouldn't work through if I wasn't able to sit at the table and talk about it. So yeah.
Well, with that being said, one thing that we've been doing is asking folks to tell us one memorable thing about your dad. And so I want to bounce that to you, the same question that we've asked other folks to make a video and we started posting today. If you could give us one memorable moment about your dad, what would it be? And if he was looking at this show right now, what would you say to him?
There you go. Nice and
Oh God! See, here we go.
We just
One
trying to help you
memorable.
get there.
Yeah, one memorable. Okay, I'm trying to get all the arguments out the way. So hold on one second.
Okay, we rewinding. Y'all get in here. Y'all get in here.
Get through.
So you like to say in church, take your time.
Man, take your time.
Take your time, baby.
Take your time. One memorable. I don't know. I have a lot of good memories, right? I guess the one memorable, if I would say one memorable, is see, this is not a good one. Okay, let's see.
They're all good ones.
No, him and my brother tried to team up on me, and I didn't take too kindly to that, but that was memorable. Because my brother's my younger brother, so he tried to help my brother out, and I didn't like it. But if I don't know if it's one memory, but my dad used to always try to make sure, because we were on the lower end of the socioeconomic. My mom was on welfare, right? So when we came to my dad's house, he was gainfully employed. So he would try to make sure that like we went out to eat at restaurants, right? Like El Torito, like that stuff. Those memories are huge for me, because if he hadn't done those things, I don't know if we would have done them otherwise, right? And so he made sure that he tried to give us a different life from the life that he knew that we were living. And that stands out to me probably the most, is that he always tried to make sure that when we came over on the weekends, you guys are going to experience something different. Even if it's raking leaves, or if it's going to the restaurant, or if it's playing a video game from a computer when people didn't even have computers, and all that type of stuff, I'm going to give you guys a different experience. And I love those, because all those experiences, I don't play video games anymore, but all those experiences have traveled with me throughout my life. I love to eat out. It's an expensive habit, but I do love to eat out. Yeah, I used to love to play video games like all night long.
Like
That
up until like last week.
That was huge. I think that was huge.
And
I
then
mean, I've been hearing you speak about it in a very light term, but I see it being so prevalent through your life. Even though I don't even think you realize the effect that he had on your life today. And yeah, when you speak about it, yeah,
You're
that's what I
speaking
hear.
highly. You're actually speaking
Yes.
highly of your dad. I want
Yeah,
you to
no,
know that.
I hear it. And,
And
you
that's
know,
why I felt safe asking you what would you say to
oh,
him?
so
I
what would I say
wouldn't
to him?
have, if I felt anything different,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't have asked that. But I really feel like you're giving him nothing but props, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel that, and that's probably why it's hard for me. I'm like, I don't want to give him props. Yes, I do. I need to give him props, but that I was going to ask you. That was the second part of it. Like, what would I say to my dad if my dad is watching? We are Facebook friends. If you're watching, Dad, hey, how you doing? But what I would say to my dad if he were watching or if he were in front of me or whatever, I'll say, Dad, I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my pride has gotten in the way of being your son. Uh, I need you. I love you. Uh, I am thankful that you are my dad. I'm thankful that I have your name. Everything I do, I pray that I make you proud and that you know that I love you and that you have shaped me in ways that I didn't even know. And I thank you for it. So that's what I would say to my dad. And y'all got a player over here crying, man, on national thing. Y'all ain't even.
Don't you worry. I'm here with you. Like, oh yeah,
Oh, my eyes are sweating.
that was beautiful. I mean, what a perfect way to end the show. I I I salute you. I mean, that was beautiful. I'm sure, like you said, it's the beginning of a brand new relationship with you and your dad, even more enhanced relationship with you and your dad. And that's what it's all about here at the table. We keep it 100% real, and we gonna pull it out of you. If you
I
sit
see.
out it,
I almost made it. I was towards the end of the show, and I was cool. Man, here we go. I thought I was gonna be cool. I thought I was gonna be cool even when I was like, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Like,
What is this?
but then, here's the deal: it's a lot more in there.
yeah,
Dig down in there. Don't be afraid to pull it out and
Right.
share it with your dad, because that is, and then come back and tell us about it. Come back and tell us how the
yeah,
relationship involved. We'd love to have you back on the show as a guest. We appreciate you. We love you. We salute you.
love you guys
And
too.
we'll have you back
And
on
what's
soon
up?
again.
Always way.
Wednesdays. Y'all go follow him. What's your IG?
Oh, my IG is my name A
What's the
Eddington
IG
Jr.
channel? Did I
A
now?
oh
Go ahead, Alvin.
oh it's A Eddington Jr. AEDINGTONJR. A Eddington Jr. My West Coast Wednesdays are up there and just other crazy stuff I put up and my Fight the Power stuff too.
Well, we thank you so much once again for joining us here at the kitchen table where there's no topic too heavy or too light. We thank you, we honor you, we appreciate you, and we will be seeing you soon. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Happy Father's Day to all the dads.
Thank you.
Okay, family. Look like I finally did come back. I don't know where they went, but we're going to thank y'all for coming out to the kitchen table tonight. We had a wonderful show. It was awesome, and we appreciate you guys. So Join us here again next Thursday where no topic is too heavy or too light for the table. Good night, y'all. Oh, my God.